Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the 1,775 poems of the poems of Emily Dickinson in the Johnson edition. We now turn to poem number 23. I had Guinea Golden. Now this is going to be an interesting poem for us because it's going to be one of those titles that will factor in the question of who is the recipient. Clearly she's speaking about somebody in this poem, but it's not totally clear exactly who it is. Many have read this as another one of those Sue poems for her pal Susan Gilbert. Others will say, no, I think something else is going on here because of our study of pronouns. Now our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist, and that you have been exposed already to our introductory set of comments regarding Emily Dickinson, and as well, hopefully you've read all of the previous poems, including poem 22 we just finished with all these my banners. Now there's going to be some background information here that will help us. Emily loved her study of astronomy and science, as we have said already, and we're going to see some referencing here to the Pleiades. And we're gonna say she's trying to pull in a little bit of her knowledge, especially as it relates to issues of astronomy and the like. Now let's enjoy the poem and then come back to annotate. Poem 23. I had a guinea golden, I lost it in the sand, and though the sum was simple and pounds were in the land, still had it such a value under my frugal eye that when I could not find it, I sat me down to sigh. I had a crimson robin who sang full many a day, but when the woods were painted, he too did fly away. Time brought me other robins, their ballads were the same. Still, for my missing troubadour, I kept the house at hame. I had a star in heaven, one Pleiade was its name, and when I was not heeding, it wandered from the same, and though the skies are crowded and all the night a shine, I do not care about it since none of them are mine. My story has a moral. I have a missing friend, Pleiad its name, and Robin, and Guinea in the sand, and when this mournful ditty accompanied with tear shall meet the eye of traitor in country far from here, grant that repentance solemn may seize upon his mind, and he no consolation beneath the sun may find. Now it is clear that the tone of voice in this poem is tongue-in-cheek, can we call it that? That is to say, it's clearly it's joking, it's humorous, rather than this somewhat deeply anguish-ridden types of language. Also, note a rhyme scheme here, do you see it? We'll have sand and land and the like, right? I and sigh. So notice the way she'll be playing around with that. Let's play with the opening lines. I had a guinea golden, in other words, a golden guinea. I lost it in the sand. Now, this will take us back to poem 21. We lose because we win. This is going to be a poem about loss. Now, but obviously, it's somebody who has been lost. Like, who is that somebody? That will be the question, right? And though the sum was simple, and pounds were in the land, in other words, it wasn't the only guinea, there were lots of other guineas, there's also other money, still, had it such a value, and obviously that's a key term, value, the value of a friend, right? Still had it such a value unto my frugal eye, in other words, I don't have a lot of friends, that when I could not find it, I sent me down to, notice here, it's not cry but sigh, and then of course later we'll get to the tears in the final stanza, yes? In other words, I had something that was of value to me, and I lost it, and I was sad about that. Even though there were others around, there are other guineas or whatever. And then from there we go to the crimson or the red robin. Now some have pointed out that crimson or red is often the color that is best representative of Susan Gilbert, her friend and possibly lover, certainly her sister-in-law for sure. Robins will be for us already. We've seen it and we're going to see it again. Very important. Poem 92 says, my friend must be a bird because it flies. And here it's the robin. Okay, so I had a crimson robin who sang full many a day, but when the woods were painted, we've seen this already, right? That is to say in the fall, he too did fly away. I would circle the word too in your study of this poem. In other words, Everything seems to be leaving me, can be kind of the message here. Time brought me many other robins, just like guineas. Their ballads were the same. In other words, I have other friends. Still, for my missing troubadour, I kept the house at hame. And notice it's in quotation marks, right, as a saying. And this word hame, of course, is just the Scottish version of home. In other words, there's one robin, above all other robins, that I really enjoyed the song of this robin, and now it's gone. Now, from guineas to robins to stars, right? So notice we go from non-material, that is to say guineas, to non-natural, to natural, the robin, and now to the constellations, especially the Pleiades. And you'll remember, of course, the Greeks argued that the Pleiades was this constellation of 7 stars, that is to say the 7 sisters. Only Electra lost, right? That is to say only 6 of the 7 can actually be seen. And this idea of the lost Pleiade, we'll actually see it again in poem 851. I had a star in heaven, one Pleiade was its name, and when I was not heeding, it wandered from the same. This idea of wandering away, leaving, right? Of course, Homer's Odyssey comes to mind. And though the skies are crowded, there's lots of stars, and all the night a shine, I do not care about it, since none of them are mine. In other words, she lost something close to her. And as if we're not going to understand exactly what she's talking about, in her final stanza, she does what she rarely does, and that is, she actually tells us what the point of this poem is. And many have argued that this is a way to address a single individual. Is it Sue? Some will say it's Sam Boyles, who she was very close to, the editor, of course, of the Springfield Republican. We've talked about that. Notice, my story has a moral. I have a missing friend. And then all of a sudden, as we're reading this, we're not adept enough to be able to go, okay, she's not really talking about money or guineas, not really talking about robins, she's not really talking about constellations or the Pleiades, she's talking about a person, a missing friend. Pleiad, its name. By the way, when we hit poem 851, we're going to hear, when the astronomer stops seeking for his Pleiad's face. So this idea of the missing Pleiad will be one other time used. Pleiad, its name, and robin and guinea in the sand. And when this mournful ditty, the fact that we go from story to ditty, the word that she chooses as ditty in terms of word choice, tells us this is not to be taken seriously, but probably more tongue-in-cheek. When this mournful ditty, accompanied with a tear, notice we go from sighing now to tears, accompanied with a tear, shall meet the eye of traitor. Of course, again, this language from troubadour to traitor, we're obviously kind of playing games here with this word of traitor. In country far from here, possibly Europe maybe, grant that repentance solemn. Now she's going to use humorous tone, but notice religious language as well. She's having a bit of fun. Grant that repentance solemn may seize upon his mind. Well, the fact that the pronoun here is his, and the fact that in the second stanza it was he too did fly away, it's not a female robin, it's a male robin, has led any number of folks to say, I don't think this is a Sue poem, I think this is a Sam Boyles poem, right? May seize upon his mind, and he no constellation beneath the sun may find. Now, I love this beneath the sun, because of course, we're playing around with more biblical language. Emily would know that readers of her own time would recognize there is nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes 1:9 is being used here, beneath the sun may find. In other words, I hope he finds no consolation in my pal, possibly Sam Boyles, whoever it is. Well, what are we going to do with a poem like this at 2A? Well, it is hard to be away from your pal, from the ones that you care about. At 2B, the rhyme scheme is there. I love the tone. I love the tongue-in-cheek kind of dancing in this poem. And then, of course, the fact that it's unknown who exactly she is referencing as being her missing friend in this poem. I love her referencing as well to the science of the day, the study of the constellations. At 3A, John Donne's valediction forbidding mourning, 1633, I think comes to mind again. In other words, don't be sad that I have to go away. Don't be sad that we are departed. And finally at 3B, to own a poem like this, what was a time when you were parted from your pal, and how did you address that? How did you find consolation yourself? Thank you.